All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the Verses Live, the poetry show, where every single Tuesday at this time we discuss a topic related to poetry. And this week, you guys have sent us some poems. So we're going to be taking a look at the work that you have sent us and sharing our thoughts. My co host ran into some traffic and things like that. So he'll be joining me shortly. But in the meantime, I kind of wanted to get started looking at some work because there's a lot. And I want to make sure we have time to give every piece at least a little bit of justice. And as we go through this, if you have any questions for me, if you have thoughts on the pieces that we're seeing, we would love to have your perspective as well. I guess we should always start with some disclaimers. We are by no means the one and only authority on poetry. All the thoughts that you are about to hear are just ours. We're giving our own suggestions and kind of quick impressions. We have not had time to dig into these poems super deep beforehand, so you're getting some very raw impressions, but we're going to let you know about the things that stand out to us, things we like, some structural things we notice, and also maybe some questions that we have that hopefully can act as a guide in steering your pieces to a place where you would like them to go. All right, without further ado, then, in that regard, let me share my screen so we can get into all of the work. All right, and again, hopefully we can get through all the pieces tonight. There's a number of them. And once my co-host arrives, just to note, we will have to take a brief pause just to get him settled. These are all the pieces that we have down here. I'm going to start off with this short one. See him in a bit so you guys can see better. All right, so first of all, thank you to Claire Louise Poetry for sending us this. And by the way, too, if you guys are thinking like publication and things like that, we are I realize the other journals and things may disagree, but we're not viewing this as publication. We're not using the actual written forms. We just have the images and things like that. And a lot of times you guys aren't even giving your full name. So hopefully if you're submitting the journals, they can't even find you online. So hopefully they won't even count this as submitting. And also if you make radical revisions, then naturally, yeah, hopefully that's more appropriate too. Again, that's not to say that if you're trying to get published, that this is going to hurt you, but or help you, but just that no, we're not considering this publication on our end personally. Let's take I don't see a title, so I'm just going to read through this. Like the sea crashing on the rocks, that's how we collide, like a natural phenomenon, destined to never fit together. Oh wow, it's a really heavy last line there. Okay. Like the sea crashing on the rocks, that's how we collide. I like opening on the image. I think that's always a way to kind of ground your reader. One of my favorite, I forget who said it. It might have been from the book Triggering Town, but there's this idea of when you start a poem, your reader almost has the experience of like entering a boat for the very first time. And your reader has no idea, is this boat going to hold me up? Is this boat going to sink? Like we have no idea what's about to happen. So I feel very grounded with the image. I appreciate also the fact we're tying in some sensory here. We're not just getting visual, we're getting some audio, some sounds like the sea crashing. And there's also kind of that physicality that's very heavy, like the sea crashing on the rocks. One thing to consider is that when you have similes and metaphors, so we have like the sea crashing on the rocks, something that a simile, one of the weaknesses of a simile is that it is never exactly the thing. It's like the thing, but that entirely means that it's not actually the thing. So just by its very nature, in most situations, a simile is going to be weaker than a metaphor. So I'd be very tempted, or I would be kind of curious to know why choose a simile. Just going right into it, like the sea crashing on the rocks, that's how we collide. That might give you something that's just a little punchier to start, but you can see how you like that. You would lose that like pattern that you may have been going for. But again, maybe even that second like has to decide, what is the role of the simile? Why are we choosing similes? And why do we want to continue using them? So there's certain maybe reasons that you're thinking of that I'm not considering. Okay. Hello to Hope Oak. Good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. We appreciate you. We will get to your poem shortly. We're waiting on my co-host. We're kind of jumping in. And of course, Hope Oak and anyone else watching, whether you're watching now or in the future, hi from the past, let us know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts on the similes versus the metaphors? My big thing is probably just going right for the metaphor, just saying, hey, the sea crashing, a natural phenomenon. I think that would get you right into the moment, just a moment faster. But maybe you prefer that kind of comparison going on. So let us know your thoughts on that. Like the sea crashing on the rocks, that's how we collide. Okay, so now with this line, we're really entering the poem in the sense of, so this isn't just a nature poem, this is a relationship poem. The we, so we imagine, so at least two people, right? Speaker, partner, I'm guessing. That's how we collide. Again, we get back with the violence as well, right? The crashing on the rocks, collide. A lot of these, yeah, I like what you're doing with the acoustics here. So a lot of your heavy k sounds, your heavy C's are involving consistent violence and aggression, but used in a, I think, in a very interesting way. Crashing on rocks. There's a lot of physicality there. That's how we collide. Crashing on the rocks, collide. You're a lot of reliance on these like and sounds, and even sounds. So a lot of kind of similar types of vowel sounds. The acoustics are really pleasant here. That's how we collide. Like a natural phenomenon, because again, linking back to that first line, it's kind of like a natural phenomenon. It's interesting too. So we start off very, very specific, right? Like the sea crashing on the rocks. That's a pretty specific image. And then that third line, like a natural phenomenon, we've gone more broad. So it's almost like we're doing a reverse funnel, right? So instead of narrowing down, we're doing the opposite. Our first two lines are super specific. Our last two lines starting to go more general. So that's an interesting inversion you got going on. Hello to Tim. Tim, let us know your thoughts. Agree, disagree? You want to fight about something? No, just this. Or you can if you want to let us know what your thoughts are. It's an interesting inversion. I think it can work. Because again, I like starting with the specific because it does really help ground your reader. Because if this had been reversed and it was like a natural phenomenon destined to never fit together, like the sea crashing on the rocks, that's how we collide. It actually could be. You could definitely play around with these lines and kind of see what happens. Like a natural phenomenon destined to never fit together. That's how we collide. Like the sea crashing on the rocks. Something like that could just so many opportunities here, especially in a short poem, right? Like a natural phenomenon destined to never fit together. Fit is a really interesting verb. Because there's so much kind of like smashing and colliding and kind of forcing objects together, but we're making that distinction, right? Just because there's this crashing and just because there's this collision and colliding doesn't necessarily mean that it's fitting. And I have to think about that because I think it's really interesting to ponder. But I also I don't know if I 100% agree with it yet or not. I need time to think about that. I get the idea. But I mean, if you can make the argument, like if like if two cars hit each other, I mean, you could certainly make the argument they collide, but they can make each other fit into each other with enough force. It also kind of makes you think too about like the sea crashing on the rocks. Eventually, the sea kind of wearing down the rocks as well. So that's kind of the fit together. I think is a very interesting idea with this. Tim makes a note. Tim does not want to throw hands. That's fine. First timer. Oh, snap. What's up? Just here to learn. Okay. Your points are equally valid, sir. Just let me know what's standing out to you guys. If you're watching this, what is standing out to you most notably, whether a specific word, a specific sound, a specific image? I like this. I do feel like I'm in the moment. I like the natural imagery. I think natural imagery is something that people have a natural biological evolutionary draw to. Even if there's a natural experience that you necessarily don't have a connection with, maybe for instance, you've never seen snow, maybe you've never seen the ocean, but you can hear these concepts and you're familiar enough with these concepts that I think they can still have a pretty wide reach. I'm a big fan of using nature images. Other things, just these aren't really critiques, just looking to move this poem forward. Like, let's imagine you want to get this. I don't know what the goal is for this poem, but let's imagine that you want to get this poem published. We're thinking like tier 1 journal, you're thinking like Kenyon Review, Poetry Mag. Like, what would it take to get there? And I think there's a couple key concepts. We need to know what's at stake. Stakes referring to what can the speaker lose here. I think there's emotion. So there is tone. So you see crashing. That's how we collide. Destined to never fit together. So we have some comments on the nature aspect in poetry. Nature and poetry are a match made in heaven. Strong agree. I'm really. This is an interesting question of the relationship between the speaker and this other character. That's how we collide, like natural phenomena and destined never fit together. How's the speaker feel about this situation, about being in this sort of relationship with this other person and never fitting together? Maybe they kind of are drawn to it. Maybe it's more of a negative spin. I think one of the things is that from a reader's perspective, I am not entirely sure about what direction I'm supposed to interpret. I can assume things, but I can't 100% be sure. And I think considering the tone, like, is this an angry speaker? Is this a frustrated speaker? Is this a sad speaker? These are all things you want to be considering. All right, my co-host is here. We're going to wrap up this poem in a moment. Give me 1 sec to get him settled. In the meantime, check out this video that we're launching very soon. I will be right back. Give me 1 minute.
Facts are important, but like emotional truth that poets get at is the most exciting and like maybe the most truthful.
When I read it in this space, when I bring it to this audience, why do I want to do that today, here, now? Something I think I'm doing a lot in my work is giving a certain amount to be able to see where this boat is going and where the waters are taking it, but not trying to paint the full landscape. Not only because I don't want to share it, but because I don't know if even I want to go there yet myself. So I'm wondering how you handle that, and if it's scary at any points for you, or how you deal with that scariness.
Yeah. Well, first, so do you feel that way about Cruel? God,
yeah. I mean, a very common reflection I get from my work is, people are like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I feel a lot of things. And that's kind of a lot of just my passion in art. Like, I don't always want to know exactly what's going on, but when I apply it personally, then I'm willing to approach what I'm willing to approach in the manner of which, or the manner and depth in which I'm willing to go into it, And and we talked about this too, it's a long game of poetry, right? Things I'm tapping into now with Cruel, I surely will keep writing about, and surely I hope that, not that I'll reveal more, but that I'll discover more.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I asked because I feel like I recognize that in the book, but there was an intentionality.
All right, we're back. Actually, really quick, let's do a brief introduction. So again, I'm Jeff, and this is...
Also Jeff, but then you can also call me Matthias if you feel so compelled, just to differentiate us.
This is Matthias. This is difficult, Matthias. Okay. Going back to the poem in a moment. Okay. Some quick comments though. Hello, Bella. Thanks for checking us out.
Hey, Bella.
Welcome. Here for the first time too. I think it's interesting to think of something natural and naturally not exactly. So one of the things I was kind of hung on a little bit is the verb fit in the last line. and I want to get your thoughts on that in a moment. We'll look at that poem again in a second. And also, we're kind of wondering what's the emotion we get from this. So we're getting a sense of maybe passion and chaos. Some strong word choices here. My God. Okay.
And sorry, so I know I'm coming in a
Yeah.
little bit. I'm coming in a little bit late. So, Claire Louise poetry.
Yes.
Do we? So is Claire Louise poetry in here right now? Or are they with us? No.
If they are, they have not said anything.
Okay. Fair enough.
But they may check us out in the future.
Okay.
So hello
cool.
from the past.
Well, shout out to Claire Louise Poetry for sending us
Yes.
poetry.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So what was your takeaway so far?
Yeah. So the thing I'm hung up on again is this verb fit, because sea crashing on rocks. That's how we collide, like a natural phenomenon. Doesn't never fit together. So it's like in some ways, the collision. The thing I'm thinking is like, hey, if your collision is strong enough, you can make anything fit together. You could literally make atoms fit together if you have the right amount of energy.
See Oppenheimer.
I mean, guys, so
yeah, I don't know. I think the thing
I
that
get the idea, but
no, go ahead.
That's all I had. I get the idea.
Yeah. Well, I think I get the idea too. When I think about something fitting together, I don't think of anything in nature because I mean, nature doesn't really have like straight lines or typical geometric shapes unless there's animals or like life that create like webs and things like that maybe. And so when I think about, I think initially when I think about fit together, I'm thinking of like puzzle.
Yeah,
right. And then kind of expanding my reality from there when it comes to like things fitting together, like pieces fitting together. And so that imagery just doesn't fit together. Well, when I'm thinking of like the sea crashing on rocks, like what's the antithesis of sea crashing on rocks is not the sea fitting together with rocks. You know what I mean? So it's hard to it's hard to really imagine or kind of be on the side with the comparison that's being drawn, because to me the comparison, the other half of the comparison isn't being like fleshed out necessarily, or she's not like the poet doesn't seem to me to be demonstrating the antithesis of that. If that makes sense, because I don't know, like sea crashing on the rocks, I don't know how that is. I don't know how that would or wouldn't be fitting together in that analogy, maybe.
Got you.
Or that metaphor,
and then my other big question for this one, and we can move on to our next one.
Yeah.
How do you think the speaker feels about this situation? And again, this is open to everyone too, not just us.
Also, it's kind of odd because it's like the sea crashing on rocks, that's how we collide, like a natural phenomenon. But sea crashing on rocks isn't a natural phenomenon. That's a fairly common and expected occurrence by the devices of nature. You know what I mean? So it's not like, it's not something that happens every once in a while, or you kind of requires the perfect conditions to happen.
There's a regularity to it.
You know what I mean? There's an intense regularity to it.
Which is, again, so I don't know how to, again, I don't know how the speaker feels about that. Like, it's just like acceptance, frustration, anger.
I would have never imagined the last line, and maybe the last line shouldn't catch you unexpected, but I think it's unexpected in the way that I don't understand how you get destined to never fit together, and then it's like, yeah, like sea crashing on rocks, like that's gonna always happen. You know what I mean? As long as the moon exists, right? But
some quick comments here. Maybe it's how one is more versatile and one is more fixed. So two different people have different personalities. Yeah, I mean, I get that sense of, something's not entirely clicking between the speaker and this other person. I definitely agree with that. I just don't, that can certainly happen, but you can have different feelings about that. That's the part. I don't know how to interpret this from the speaker's perspective, and I don't necessarily have to, but that's something that can color everything else. Tim makes a note. The end takes me to the image of a sea leaving the rock, like the end of a personal connection. Maybe this is a big maybe. Okay, Claire is using the passion beginning to draw emphasis to the end. I like that last part. The passion in the beginning to draw emphasis. Yeah, because the first part is very. There's a lot of energy happening, and it's very concrete. And the last half of this is very kind of cerebral. We're thinking of destiny, and we're using words like phenomenon. Our word choice is very different between our first two lines and our last two. This is also a case of a poem that I think if we had a title, I'm very biased. I like titles. Having a title would have really given me a greater sense of direction. The title can guide me in terms of what emotion I should feel, even if you don't add anything else to the poem itself. You know, the example I always give is like if the poem is titled, after the breakup, well then this poem has a very different feel than the first time I met you. Or like stuff like that, so just titles are really powerful in framing.
Oh, that's too many.
Last thoughts on this piece from anybody? This is a joint effort, guys. We're a team, we're a family now. I'm gonna move on. Mm-hmm. Claire Louise Poetry, thank you for sending us your work. We appreciate your words. Next up, Matthias, let you pick the poison, sir.
Let's go for this one in the black. I like
this black one here. Is that the right one? Or is it the red one?
Oh, that one. Yep. I guess either one. Both
okay. Pull this one up. Make it a little bigger. This is from Tim Timmer or Team Tima. Tim Timmer. No.
Tim Timmer.
Tim, is this you or is this a different Tim? Let's know if this is you. Matthias, would you like to do the honors?
Let's do it. Feet free to the winds, echoes of four, pins made of forest now paths, scores since we ran, yet the heart begs more. Only forward will this dream last. Strides wait souls, wait ushers, the halt, the song of the heart, now water and salt. The cost of reminisce, demanding its due. I pay in full, your half and mine, as the four echoes were only two.
Thank you to Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Tim says this is him. This is his work.
Tim, how, if you had to score that reading of your work on a scale of 1, 2, and then just 1, tell me how would you score it? Don't let the button that Jeff's just pushed influence your decision, Tim, because I take a lot of pride in my ability to read things off of a screen to my right. Now to my left, that's gonna get sketchy. I didn't take those classes.
No glasses today, by the way.
No glasses, contacts. Yeah.
Miracles of vision. Yeah. All right. No title again. So
it's like after your last one, you're just like, I'm really partial to the title. Let's read yours, Tim. Thanks, Tim. Man, I appreciate that.
Tim, you don't have to be nice to him. Like
Tim, is this your artist picture that's in your profile? Is this like an artist picture? This is really this is a really nice.
I need to make that bigger.
I don't know if y'all, if anybody is watching this, if you like click Tim's like picture, this is a very solid
profile. His Tim Daniels. Find him. He's got that. It's almost got that meme pose. You know that one guy with like the question marks.
I feel like if I was casting for like an evening soap opera, it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I would look at y'all like, man, this guy could play like a doctor that's also a secret agent. That's surprisingly enough both the father and grandfather of the science experiment. I haven't watched any soap operas in my life, so I'm just guessing at the plot here.
I don't think this is why Tim came here, but
That's my headshot.
He's getting all.
That's a
of
nice. That's a nice headshot, Tim. That's a solid, really good headshot. Whoever did your headshots, clap. Tell them that Versus said, "Great job."
I kind of want to go stanza by stanza.
Stanza it up.
Initial thoughts for you on the first stanza. How you feeling after that first?
So when we're talking about the first stanza, are we doing like are we entering in? Are we entering in with as if we had not read the rest of the poem yet, and we're just like, okay, what do you get? What do you want to just?
I'm okay with that personally because
Okay.
I need time to digest it anyway. So Tim, we're gonna kind of walk through a little bit line by line, initial kind of just reactions because I personally have not had time to digest this yet. So everything you're about to see is very raw.
Okay, so this Jeff's first reaction is, "Where's the title, Tim? What happened, July 18th, 2023, at 4:37 p.m.? Come on, man, that's just the time. I want to have a time."
Okay.
Feet
free to the winds.
Echoes of 4, pins made of forest now pass.
There's a lot happening.
Feet free to the wind. I think it's, and maybe it's just because I just recently went bowling, so maybe I had to like kind of get some stuff.
It'd be very painful on your wrist.
I'm not very good, so my wrist is perfectly fine. So okay, so I back to my so when I'm reading it, it's odd. It's feet free to the wind, so I'm getting nature in that I'm getting like freedom.
Yeah,
in a way,
like carefree a little bit. It's like
because you get the free feet. Like, so first of all, like when you're thinking about feet, and I don't know what everybody thinks about when they think about feet. You know what I'm saying? So this is not like everybody out there that's just like, hey, I take feet incredibly seriously and wrap them up. No, I like when you say feet free to the winds, like I'm thinking of, kind of just like walking like outside, maybe barefoot. That like and maybe that's not exactly what you're saying, but it is the images that are kind of invoked, kind of in there.
Free kind of nature, and it's the phrasing is. I forget what the phrase is, like cast your worries to the wind or something. Like there's that kind of sense here where it's like I feel freedom, relaxed, carefree. You can almost imagine like driving like a convertible with everything down and just like feeling the breeze. That's kind of what I'm getting.
Okay, I get that.
Feet up. I don't know how you're driving, but
I've seen people drive like that. They drive with like their foot out of the window. And that's a separate. This is not for the. I wish.
Echoes of 4. Okay, so now it's interesting seeing the number 4. I was expecting it written out. But we get the number.
Yeah, because it's 4. Then I think the number 4 takes me a little bit further away from kind of the nature imagery, because like you get the actual numeral.
Like the previous poem, because now I'm peeling the logic as opposed to kind of concrete.
Yeah,
which is I don't have good or bad things to say about just where I'm at. Echoes of 4. I definitely. The first line I thought was, if I'm interpreting it right, was a fresh way, because I haven't personally heard this exact phrasing, especially with the feet essentially start. Echoes of 4, I'll be honest, the grounding that I had in the first line, now I feel a little bit lost. Echoes of 4, like the 4 winds, the 4.
See, I was thinking about like 4 maybe feet. Because like
you got 4 echoing feet in the size.
No, but I mean you got 4 echoing winds.
I don't. Isn't there a number associated with winds? Am I Pocahontasing it too much? Is there?
What?
No?
Don't spoil that. I don't know how that movie ends up.
But that's where I'm kind of being led. I'll put this. I'm a little bit lost with the second line, and I don't want to be, not from a reader's perspective, because like I want to make sure I'm giving you things that are helpful, and I want to be helpful for this line. But I'm right now where I'm at. I do feel a little bit lost.
Okay.
Pins made of forest now pass.
I think there's some real ambiguity that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That and it kind of depends.
Tim's okay with us being lost. So the way I read it, pins made of forest. The way my logic always wants to kind of jump in. The way I see it is that, okay, you have a pin, so it's like a wooden pin. We're being clever and saying it's a wooden pin. It's a pin made out of forest instead of saying
it feels like a riddle out of Harry Potter. It's like, okay, feet for okay,
right. So the thing then I get lost though is the now paths. So like pins, and first of all, because usually when I think of a pin, I think of metal. So then they have the wood for like that. I get a little bit. I'm like, I can work with it, but now I don't know if I'm doing what you want me to do as a reader. That's the only thing that makes me nervous. Pins made of forest now pass. So the way I see that is that, hey, we made something, and now it's no longer that original thing. It has now become a path.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at. Are you with me? On this?
I see how you got there. I absolutely see how you got there.
I'm going very. I read poems very logically, and that can be a very horrible thing for poetry. So I can be completely missing. Your intention.
I think I'm the same too. I think I'm trying to find some grounding in like a tangible reality that I can kind of navigate myself, through the poem. And so, and that's also the reason why, in the first two lines, feet free to the winds, echoes of four. The subject that I'm thinking is carrying us through those first two lines is feet. You know what I mean? Like not the winds. Like it's the feet are free to the winds. You know what I'm saying?
I think I'm starting. Okay, it's like feet free to winds, echoes of four. So like there's multiple people.
Right. Yeah.
I'm with you. Okay. And that actually would make So this, I jumped ahead to the third stanza. Okay. So echoes of 4 feet. So 2 people.
Pins.
Right. Unless we have some
made of forest now path. So like feet
group of people.
Right.
But okay.
But not like pins made of forest now paths. Like I think like maybe the first part you don't really, but like now paths, like now I'm thinking of walking on like feet, walking on paths.
I'm kind of thinking more like cross country or something. But regardless, so on a path. Okay. Especially with the next line. Score since we ran. Okay, so we have echoes of 4. In some ways I may have been more grounded if the first and second stanzas had been swapped. Like scores,
echoes of 4 feet.
The heart begs for more.
Oh wait. Wait. You mean the first 2 stanzas, or okay? Yeah. Oh yeah. So you're saying like echoes of 4 feet, free to the. Oh yeah. I see that.
But I'm saying from a grounding perspective. Give me a second. Hopefully this works.
Just from a grounding perspective, let me fix your poem for you.
No. But this, I would not feel as lost. Like, if these had been swapped, I would have been with you longer. Then because I'm
the first. You want the first 2 stanzas all together?
I want them swapped.
Okay.
I would consider, for the logic, I would consider swapping them because I would have been more with the scene.
Okay, well, hold on. Let's read it out loud and see how it sounds. I'll say so. Scores since we ran, yet the heart begs more. Only forward will this dream last. Feet free to the winds, echoes of 4, pins made of forest now paths.
Personally, I would have been more grounded that way.
You feel like you would have been more grounded like that? That's
because. Score since we ran, yet the heart begs for more. Only forward will this dream last. So now I'm also only forward will this dream last. That's also kind of putting me into the dream. states, which makes, for my mind, it makes me easier to accept the echoes of 4 feet free to the winds, pins made of 4. Like there's kind of like, I don't want to say surreal, but there's some imagery here that after dream is easier for my mind to accept.
Do you feel like the first 2 stanzas are in a way kind of a mirror of each other, just like one is more concrete than the other? It seems like, a lot of, like, what a lot of poets do, like they have the first lines are to kind of
That's your vehicle.
prove, kind of like prove. Well, I mean, there's okay. So depending, I've been to a lot of open mics, right? And there's a lot of poems that, and like, first of all, Tim, I like the poem. So like, this is not like a commentary on your poem necessarily, but do you think that there's a lot of poets that they'll open with kind of language that in reality is kind of less grounded, but it seems to really kind of like, to them at the very minimum, it's like, this is language that really packs a punch. Like there's some kind of etherealness to it that the reader or the listener is going to be able to attach to, and in that way, when I'm doing the rest of my poem, you're following along. Because to me, it's like the first 2 stanzas, when I read the first stanza, I don't necessarily I think I could be convinced that the second stanza is a developed version of the first stanza. It's like I've increased the resolution and I've said, okay, this, what I mean here is what I'm saying here.
I guess the question I would have is, what's happening in the first stanza what is the role of the first, in Tim, this is, I'm talking to you, Tim. Hey, Tim.
It's like his picture just seems so like warm and inviting. So like, even when you're saying that, it's just like, he's a good guy. Like this guy.
So the goal is asking ourselves, what's happening in the first stanza, and what is the function of what's happening in the first stanza? What is the function of what's happening in the second stanza? What's the difference between what's happening in the first and the second stanzas? And is it reciprocal? Is it no? There's key concepts in the first stanza that I really need here, and things like that. So these are just kind of questions I would take down. Was the first stanza just our vehicle in? It's like, hey, it's the first line I wrote. Now I'm in the poem. I'm keeping it here. Because that is an interesting, how does the poem change if it goes from score since we rant? Like it just starts from there versus if it starts at the first stanza. And I'm not saying erase the first stanza. I'm saying ask yourself what's happening in the first stanza you think is the goal. How is it moving the poem forward closer to your goal? Which you probably need to get to the other stanzas, also kind of see what's going on.
Yeah. There's something that I learned, like, and when it comes to screenwriting, that kind of somewhat applies here when we're in that's the reason why I kind of introduced the topic of like the Harry Potter riddles. And whenever writing a character that leaves riddles or that, uses riddles as a way of, pushing forward the plot, one of the things you have to do is you have to make sure that the function of the riddle or the mechanics of the riddle actually further the plot itself. Again, the way that I'm tying it, I think, to poetry is, I think a lot of times, and I'm as guilty as anybody of this. I mean, Jeff knows this more than I'll write a part of the poem and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is a really good line, and I'm sure and I'm entirely confident that it resonates with the rest of the poem. But the problem is that even if it resonates, it's also redundant, because I do that thing much clearer and precise, and I'm actually carrying the themes of the poem a lot better when I do it the other time. And it typically happens in that order. Like, you do this thing up here, and then as you write and as you create, your brain is kind of solidifying the concepts and the things that unless you like kind of write kind of spotty everywhere, like a lot of people do, right? But typically, if you're writing the poem from the top to the bottom, it's like like you're also exploring the poem if it's like kind of genuine creativity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as you're exploring the poem yourself, and this again, I want to be clear, like this is something that I have to do like a lot, because you get attached to that first line, you know what I'm saying? You get attached to that first bunch of stanzas probably. And this is, I am speaking as a person who has had like 8-minute poems, and then I like would like yell at like either JG or Jeff or my wife, like no, trust me, it needs to happen. And like, no, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. But just to say, and this is not like this is much less than an 8-minute poem, but it's just to say that I think the thing that happens in the first stanza to me happens again in the second stanza. But to me, it happens a lot clearer. And if there's another thing, if there's a separate thing that's happening in the first stanza that differentiates it, it's not clear, at least to me, by the time I'm done with the first stanza.
Yeah, a good line can wreck a poem if you're not careful.
You see how he just eliminated? see how he said I went on like a 3-minute speech, and then Jeff was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna cut that 3-minute speech down to 2 sentences."
Okay. Score since we ran, yet the heart begs more. A great tone. You know, so now I'm with. We're getting some emotional language, which is great. But the heart begs more. Only forward will this dream last. I'm okay with it. I'm a little confused with the only forward part, but I'm okay with being.
I think I understand. I think there's something really appealing to me about that line, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but only forward will this dream last.
It's
yeah.
We don't need to understand everything 100%.
Yeah.
Strides, wait, souls. Souls is a tricky word because that immediately gets heavy because it's the soul. You know what I mean?
But no, but that's like souls. That's like the soles of your feet.
I hear you, but
which also brings it up to the feet, right? So it's
does?
like, okay.
Wait, ushers the halt. You have an opportunity here, not to say that you have to do it, but you do have an opportunity for some parallel structure, which is taking off the. Strides, wait, souls, wait, ushers, halt. Just a note. And honestly, I mean, a lot of these articles, you know, you could consider what is the role, or are you just putting articles here just to put them there because we're trying to be circular grammar? Because in some ways they are adjusting your flow. Like if you didn't have articles like strides, wait, souls, wait, ushers, halt, song of heart, now water and salt, like when that is able to flow a little bit more, but you kind of need to make a decision like how tied to grammar and things like that are we, and do we need to be? You may not even need to now. Song of heart, water, and salt. Thoughts on this third?
I mean, I think the song of heart now. I think you do need it now.
I'm pursuing. I mean,
maybe not, but like, you know, I think you could probably switch water and salt to like salt water. Maybe. How dare you? But yeah, I mean, I think it gives like the. No, actually, maybe it doesn't, because you don't necessarily have a past.
Words to always kind of keep an eye on in your poems. Words like articles. Words like prepositions and things like that. Does not say they never have a purpose, but you know, this is not prose. This is poetry. Every single word needs to really earn its spot. You need to kind of ask yourself: is this article doing the work to justify its position here, or is it not? And maybe, in your opinion, it's cool. But just kind of something to consider and play with. Strides, wait, souls. Wait, ushers the halt.
You might not need the second wait. Stride, ushers souls, ushers the halt. I actually think I like that better. Like strides, wait, souls, ushers the halt.
I like to play with the switching away from a verb to a noun, but
I mean, I understand. Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
yeah, but it's also
Just options.
it's just wait and wait.
But how
And
about in
closer
terms of
together.
meaning? Strides, weight,
And they're at
souls.
different parts of
So
the
it's like
line.
it's like strides, like they're running, and that's weighing them down. And then weight ushers halt, so they're running and they're getting tired, so they need to pause.
Wait, strides, weight, souls.
That's how I'm interpreting that.
I mean, I think that's pretty much the only way to interpret it. But I don't. Maybe I'm not.
Do you think it's too much of a reach in terms of the? Are we being too poetic?
Well, I'm trying to maybe put together strides, weighting the souls. Like, what does that look like? You know what I mean? Like, and if we're talking about, if we're trying to grasp for like a practical image, like what it, I could see your souls being weighted down in your stride, but not the strides weighting the souls. You know what I mean?
I do just want to say that. Tim says I got it. Tim says I got it. That's what's up, Tim.
Wait, the fourth sample. Wait, what?
Oh, he says in terms of the strides, weight, souls, you're running, you get tired, weight ushers to halt. He says that.
Wait, you're entire. Wait,
Tim
say
and
that
I are
again?
on the same page. Matthias doesn't have to be. Tim and I are on the same page.
You don't want to be on the same page as Jeff. Okay. He doesn't like barbecue sauce. Okay.
Let the hate flow through. Okay.
He doesn't like macaroni and cheese, Tim.
I don't.
So if you want to be on the same page as Jeff, just this is the company you're keeping.
No cheese on my mac and cheese. You can quote me on that.
It's terrible.
Strides Way Souls, Song of the Heart, Now Water. I'm a little bit confused by the last Song of the Heart, Now Water and Salt. So I'm getting, okay, sweat. That's how I'm interpreting the water and salt. Sweat.
Oh, he was going through the rhyme scheme. Oh, yeah. Wait, so wait ushers the halt, Song of Heart, Now Water and Salt. I see the reason why he did water and salt now. Am I right there? Was that for the rhyme scheme, Tim?
Why are we rhyming now though?
Well, that's a good question, but
I mean, so Song of the Heart, Bella makes the note, hey, this is the heartbeat. I mean, that's how I was interpreting it too. It's like Song of the Heart, referring to heartbeat. Yeah. It feels like I understand what we're doing. So we have basically what is happening here. You have two people that are running and they get tired, so they need the break. Okay. Need to take a break. They're hot, they're sweating, and their pulse is up. That's basically the logic of what's happening here, right? Agree, disagree?
Maybe, but
I did want the rhyme, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. But the heart, I think there's lines that if that's the explanation, and I'm trying to maybe like kind of justify. So like, yet the heart begs more. Are you saying like you both just wanted to run more, but you couldn't run more? And is the running?
Yeah, the way it's hard.
Joy and Tears.
Yeah, kind of comes down to. It seems very important that there's a speaker and another person. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not just about the running. It seems to be about this running with the other person. It could have been. It's not score since I ran. Score since we ran, and now we're doing it again. Look at us. We're doing the thing. I want to do this more. I'm looking again at the second stanza. And I'm really enjoying this moment. Only forward the stream last. Now we're running together and we're tired.
Wait, you're saying I really enjoy this moment is expressed with only forward the stream lasts? Is that?
Yeah, I take that as saying that, hey, I'm really enjoying this. And man, I wish we could.
Only forward with the stream lasts.
And that gets back to that. I think it's an interesting line. I still need to decide how I feel about it. But Strides Away Souls, Way Ushers, Song of the Heart, Now Water and Salt. The now is kind of throwing me off because because when you say the Song of the Heart, Now Water and Salt, well, I mean, just because your heart's beating fast doesn't mean that you're sweating. Like it could just be a song.
Oh, but it's saying. I think it's saying like the joyful maybe youth and just like your heart beating and racing is now this. You're just like super sweaty and maybe I think sweaty and tired might be the two things that are. Because strides, weight, souls, weight ushers the halt. So like the weight of the strides ushering the halt. So maybe like there's some weight, like maybe you add in overtime, maybe some weight gain in both parties.
Nah, because I'm in the moment here, and that would take me out of like some more general.
I know. Well, I mean, but I mean, I don't want to fast forward maybe to the fourth, but so I think you do. Essentially you're living within both time references because scores since we ran. So now we have two things that we're dealing with. We're dealing with the now that this is happening in and remembering the
which is still
when
now.
You ran and
we're just reflecting on past, but it's still now.
Well, but yeah, but you're still, you have to deal with it. It's not like the future that like you're not dealing with the future in this poem, right? You're not dealing with okay, what happens years from now. You're dealing with the thing that's happening now, which is you reminiscing or talking about, and then what is the thing that you're talking about? The past. And so and I'm not saying that the past is a subject in the poem as much as the past is it is something that the speaker is referencing. So strides, weight, souls, weight ushers the halt, the song of the heart, now water and salt. So that I think kind of creates the to me the direct image, or not, it's an indirect image. So because I could be completely off on this, Tim. But before we're talking about the joyfulness and maybe the glee of just running and enjoying yourselves and what have you, till now, which is, man, my heart begs for more. I like, what I'm saying, the heart begs for more, but strides weight the souls and weight ushers halt. So like, yeah, I want to be able to do more or what have you, but I'm being weighted down, and that weight ushers the halt. And then only forward will this dream last. So yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, scored since we ran, yet the heart begs for more. Only forward will this dream last. So it's like, it's not as if you loving to, like, let's say if we're doing maybe a direct subject, or like it's a concrete subject, running, and like the verb that you're doing is like to run. It's like, this is the thing that you love to do, but only forward will this dream last. And so as we progress forward, even if we love to do this, eventually it's going to be harder and more arduous to accomplish. You know what I mean? And so that's where we get the song of the heart, which, maybe it was, because I mean, we can presuppose was, because we're going into now. So was the song of the heart, now is water and salt, which is this, you're tired and
I see that,
sweaty.
I see that. Tim approves as well.
Tim approves. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, says you're so on the mark. You did the thing. Cost of reminiscence demanding its due. You're half in mine as the four echoes were only two. What is the cost of reminiscence?
Okay, so I'm gonna I'm gonna take maybe a leap here. I think a lot of times in storytelling, I can't remember what exactly it is, but a lot of times in storytelling, like you're referring to reminiscing in the way that it's like you're doing the thing that you used to do. So like you have, two people that were old friends, and they used to like always play checkers together in the park, and then their version of reminiscing isn't just talking about reminiscing, it's playing checkers together in the park. And like that's like this reminiscing. And so maybe it's kind of maybe the same thing that's happening here, where is the reminiscing isn't, you're not talking about running, like you're running, you know what I mean? And then like the cost of reminiscing, I pay in full, you're half in mine. So I'm not sure exactly, unless it's just to say that like maybe you were more exhausted and more tired, or maybe you were doing it. Oh wait, oh no, yeah. So I think, oh god, okay, so all right, so this maybe restructures a poem. Oh crap. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong here. Maybe the person, the other subject, or the other person in this poem, maybe they have either moved away, or they're distant, or they're past, or something of that nature. And the cost, so like the reminiscence that is happening in an active sense is only it's only being done through you. Like Tim's the only one that is actively reminiscing, or like, the right, like the speaker is the only one that's actively reminiscing. And then maybe they're reminiscing because they are thinking of the other person, and like, this is what I used to do.
So the
with
person's
this.
not actually there.
Yeah, the person's not, because then, and then that way, because then it's like, feet free to the winds, echoes of 4 pins made. Oh, so it's like these four feet, which I'll say this: I think that the 4 in and of itself, to me, is like there has to be some other way to maybe not. I don't know, because it's like, it's your poem, so I do what you. I think for me, like, I get that at the beginning, but then I'm kind of unlocking it now. So maybe that's the point. So this could all be part of your master plan.
No, I agree that with this. And again, as we were reading through this, Tim got very raw kind of thoughts, because we were just progressing stanza by stanza. So this is kind of the logic that the reader would go through, So then this last stanza, it does seem to me the speaker is actually alone. The other person is not there. The I pay in full is a little bit. Like, I pay in full, you're half in mine.
I think the introduction of a cost of reminiscing is kind of it. I really, okay. So here's what I like. I like the last stanza more or less introducing a conceptual exchange that is kind of a given, that is not too much of a reach. Is kind of a given, but it's introducing some language and a paradigm that you can grasp onto fairly easily, because you don't want to do something in the last stanza that seems so far out there that it's like, why am I like, how did I get here? So I actually really rock with this idea that at the end, it's you're exploring these kind of this paradigm of running, maybe being frolicking in youth, and that kind of going down to, I still think, I think the first stanza is because of the second line is because of the last stanza, naturally. Like, it's one is because of the other. And I almost would wonder if there's a way to integrate that concept of echoes of 4 into somewhere else in the poem,
Like a
maybe
title?
naturally.
No.
like writing it at the top of the page, Tim. Jesus Christ. But yeah, so I think, yeah, which is just to say that I really like the idea of like kind of that exchange happening at the end, where it's like the cost of reminiscence demanding its due. So there is a cost to this remembrance that you're doing, maybe in both the the literal
exhaustion and stuff.
The literal reality of maybe running and maybe you're exhausted, and because the last time you did this or the times that you did this before, you were young and you were vibrant or whatever. I'm not to say that you're not vibrant now, Tim. Like, you're plenty vibrant. Right, I can tell by the picture, man. Like, come on, man, this is a vibrant guy here. But but yeah, so it's like you're young and but so like now when you're doing it and you're doing this reminiscing, like there's a real physical cost that you're paying the full brunt of, and it's kind of like almost like a sweet sentiment, like, and I'm paying yours too. I'm tired enough for the both of us, right? And then this, as the echoes of four, we're only, and that's actually okay. That's a really, it's a sneaky transcendent line. Like, as the echoes of four, I might cut out the as or four. Yeah,
Tim just dropped something. Yeah. I don't want to read that yet because it might be some spoiler stuff. No spoiler. I want you to know our raw reading before interpretation.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I just want to finish, and then, but I was just saying, as the echoes of four were only two is actually like a really sneaky transcendent line, and which is the reason why I'm saying that, like, I understand the reason. Framing it that way, I understand completely the reason for the second line, and I think the second line required that you have a stanza there. So it's also, I'm like, you need something there if you're going to have that second line, or you incorporate what is happening in the second line. This echoes of four, so it's like these 4 feet, right? You maybe make that a literal verbiage or some like kind of literal phraseology somewhere, so that when you're saying in the echoes and the 4 echoes were only 2, because it's like, yeah, it's if I'm thinking about footsteps and echoes, I'm not thinking about each footstep as its own echo pattern. I'm thinking like, if I'm hearing an echo, I'm not like, oh, if I'm like in a cave and somebody's running towards me in a cave, I'm not thinking about like, listen to the 2 echoes, 1 for each foot. I'm thinking I'm hearing the echoes of footsteps. So I don't. That's just my. This is what I was saying. Yeah.
I like the idea. I think the concept's there. I think the execution needs some tweaks, but I like the idea. A note for the last line. There's some funky grammar going on, right? As the 4 echoes, we're only 2. Those sorts of moments in poems, I would just, especially these sorts of things very often happen towards the end of a poem. What happens at the end of the poem when we're writing the end of a poem? We know we're writing the end of the poem. We're like, I need to finish this. How can I close it? To me, this feels like I'm thinking close. How can I finish this poem?
Coffee's for closers.
I want the rhyme. Okay, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna we're gonna make this work. We're gonna twist the grammar as the 4 echoes. We're only 2. It reads a little bit forced to me. It feels like we had this idea in mind and we're like, I'm gonna make this idea work. I'm gonna play around with language in any way possible for this to happen. So
You think the poem started with the last line?
I don't want to say the poem started with the last line. I just, to me, it feels forced. It feels like I wanted to end the poem.
Okay, hold on. Without reading the last paragraph, because I don't want to read the last paragraph.
Yeah.
But Tim, can you? Did the poem start with the concept of the last line? I'm just curious. Was the first thing that you kind of figured, or what was the first thing you figured out about this poem, or what line was the first thing you figured out? Did it start at the top, or did it start at the bottom?
I'm gonna bet start at the top.
I think that can typically add a little insight. I think when I'm writing a poem, typically it started at okay. Started the first line.
Out of here.
I think typically when I'm writing poem, I don't know, because it kind of differs, but more often than not, it'll start with the middle line that will become the first line. You know what I mean? Like I'll start a poem and I'll start writing, and it'll be like the middle line, No, it'll start at what I think is the first line. Like I think it's the first line, which is the reason why I started there. But then when I get to my middle line, that's when I realize like, oh, actually that's the line that starts this poem because I've worked through some things. And yeah, I don't know. I think the last line is kind of I'm a fan of the concept of this of the
I
last
like the
line.
idea. I think the idea is here.
So
It's just I think we need to tweak the execution a little bit because sometimes I think it's a little bit forced. Also, some of that gets introduced just kind of with the rhyme scheme because we're not even rhyming necessarily unless I'm missing something. The rhyme scheme comes in a little bit late.
Yeah,
like 4 paths, winds,
maybe
very
and
slight
last.
off rhymes, but man, we're really stretching that. Ran more last. I mean, ran last.
I think the paths and last. If you, I mean, it's not like a. It doesn't fit. What is the last poem? Yeah, it doesn't fit as much. But I think
if we want a rhyme scheme, I think playing with consistency, maybe even playing around with meter. Also asking ourselves why we want the rhyme scheme.
Because the rhyme scheme line is the longest line in the poem.
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty dramatic shifts between just visually between your first even 3 stanzas and your last one. You know, just giving. Sometimes it's just helpful to give poems the eye test. You know, and if suddenly like don't even like read it, just look at it. There's a big pattern disrupt on the last stanza, which that's not necessarily a bad thing, but last stanzas are also the place where again we know we're ending the poem, and sometimes it's very easy to kind of force it, and sometimes it's also a defense mechanism because sometimes we're getting into something that's a little sensitive and we don't want to go there, so we stop ourselves. And a lot of times what ends up happening is we start inverting the grammar, we start introducing things that we had never done before. You know, for instance, there's a lot of structural things that are different in addition to you know, suddenly your first line is your longest line, whereas in the other stanzas your last line is always your longest line. You have the grammar inversion in the last line. You have the rhyme scheme going on. It's a new rhyme scheme too because it's do and two, but you don't do first and third anywhere else. You have every other stanza is very much in the moment. Feet free to the winds, scores since we ran. You know, the heart begs for like I'm still in that moment though. Strides, you know, I'm in the actual running, and then I get super cerebral. The cost of reminiscence, the cost of reminisce demanding its due, I pay in full. We're like super abstract. Like we don't have any of that concrete nature that we had in the earlier stanzas. You know, so when we have so many differences between the last stanza and everything else that came before it, it always kind of makes me wonder, or it really makes me feel, oh, this feels like we're running away from what the poem's actually trying to do. So my challenge for you would be, I'm not saying erase your last stanza. What I would say is imagine your last stanza is not there and spend 20 minutes continuing the poem from now, water, and salt, and just see where the poem goes. And if it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere. But it feels like we're actually getting to the tender moment. Because the way this feels to me is you have a speaker who they used to run with someone. They can't run with that person anymore. I mean, it could be a death poem. It could be the other person just moved away. I kind of get leaning more towards death, personally. It seems like the other person's not physically with us anymore. But, and I mean, that's really painful. You know, even if they just moved away, that's really painful too. So I think you have a real opportunity to explore that more because that's where the poem's really going to open up. Don't be we're right now we're kind of guarded. We pretend we're not being guarded, but we're actually being pretty guarded. Yeah, we have so many poems. I do want to move. We spent so much time. Tim, I hope this was helpful.
Wait, hold on. What was he saying?
Tim's notes. If you guys don't want a spoiler warning, don't look at this.
Spoiler alert.
Tim says it's a story about a person who's running in a place a friend that they lost used to run through. Okay. When they stop running, reality kicks in and remembers they're running alone.
Oh.
You know, another thing too. That's what's up. Sometimes we get, and I'm not saying your poem's doing this. This is just kind of just cautious. Sometimes we get so obsessed with the idea. I'm writing a poem. I'm writing a poem. I'm writing a poem that we're like, I had to make this super poetic. I gotta add these I gotta twist things. We want to add some metaphor.
Yeah.
So we don't say the thing. Say the thing.
What's in the box?
Just say the thing. I'd be really curious what a version of this. And again, I did a version of this. I'm not saying rewrite the poem, but just a version of this that's instead of going for the flowery stuff, like echoes of four, strides, wait, souls, wait, ushers, halt. Being if we approached it instead of kind of lyric, because that's kind of where this is leaning. It's like a narrative lyric, but I would actually no, it's more lyric narrative. But I would try doing more narrative lyric. I would focus more on the narrative storytelling aspect of it and just kind of see where that goes.
Or just add a title.
Or
could have solved all your problems.
Okay, we're moving on. Tim, thank you for sending us the poem. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Tim.
it. Who else is here? I want to make sure that people who are here get their poems covered because they're nice enough to spend time with us. So I know Hope is here, and I know Bella is. Is this the same Bella who sent us the poem? Bella, if you're here, let us know. But I do want to at least touch on your poems. Hope did let me know that they are here, so I do want to touch on Hope's poem at least. I think it's this one. Okay. Hope this is. Yes, Hope is here. Hope is here. Cool. And Bella, this is also the same Bella. Cool. All right. So Bella, if you can bear with us, give us like 15 minutes and we will get to yours, or you can check us later or hang with us. We'd love if you have. But this is Hope. A quick note that this was written. This is a collaborative piece with Romance Lover 09 on Instagram. Okay, so
Collaborative.
Come on, collaborative pieces. Group piece. We here.
Wait. Hope is in here with us right now.
Hope is in here with us right now.
Okay. So Hope, we're gonna get to how what is it like writing a collaborative piece? I feel like I've written my halves of like performances before. So like the performance is kind of encompassing several different parts. So we're just kind of essentially the two people having conversations with each other. But when you're writing a piece like this, which in its shape is kind of like the and it's naturally I don't know if you already planned on if you even met like the Instagram handle owner, right? I don't know anything about the socials. I don't know. This is technology. But yeah, so what is that like? What is it like writing a collaborative piece that is a formula like a conventional poem in build and shape? Like I'm not trying to say like y'all conventional, but yeah, I don't know what that's like. So if you got any input on that, let me shoot it out here. But we'll talk about.
We'll anxiously wait. This has a title.
It does. What's the title?
The poem is called "If the Sea Were Made of Ink." I guess that's right. All right, I'll take a read at this.
Swing it out.
If paper grew on trees and the sea was made of ink, I'm sure Earth would take this moment to write down what she really thinks. I can only imagine of all the things she'd have to say. I doubt they would be sugar-coated, but it's not her I blame. We've tortured her profusely, leaving only bruises and scars. Her lands are weak, trembling, slowly being torn apart. Like a selfless mother, she continues to provide everything, even though her children are just continuing the same. Like a tiger who makes their way to live in the jungles which are too deep. They struggle to catch their breath under this godforsaken trash heap. We must help our mother to lift the weight from her shoulders before she gives up entirely and there's no one left to hold her. Just a quick note before we enter that poem. Thank you again for sending us. They know it's so much fun. I first got into it with an app called Haiku Jam. Interesting. I've heard of that one. I don't actually know a whole lot of poetry apps. I love hearing other thoughts and making it mold together.
It's pretty cool.
My shower likes to make mold. Anyway. Enough about my shot.
I need help.
Actually, dude,
Please.
does anyone have
Somebody knows.
Okay, so again, the poem is called "If the Sea Were Made of Ink." First thoughts on that, just to kind of concentrate on the title for a moment. If the sea were made of ink, what is that?
It's kind of interesting that the title of the poem is actually this, like the second line of the poem, as opposed to the first. Paper grew on trees, being the first, because it's also it's interesting, because if the sea were made of ink and paper grew on trees, and maybe this is me being too like I'm the guy that's like, if I'm like watching a movie, I'm like, yeah, that'll never happen. That's impossible. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so like this is not to say that this is a flaw with your poem, as much as maybe it's like a thing that it's an internal mechanism that happens in my head. But so if paper grew on trees and the sea were made of ink, I'm not sure that invokes a personification of the planet that would make me think that like if the sea were made of ink, then we would die. But that's just me putting that out there. But yeah, no, I think it's an interesting
it's intriguing to start. It's intriguing to start.
I'd wonder why the first line wouldn't be if paper grew on trees, and then the second line be in the sea where, like, in the first, no, if the title was if paper grew on trees, and then you wouldn't even need the first line, you would just go into the second one and the sea was made of ink, I'm sure the earth would.
I do think there's other titles that might get at some of the conceits in the poem a little bit, because the premise of this is kind of just an entry into the first lines, but I think there's other things going on later on in the poem that could be other opportunities to consider for a title too. I also don't know. It's not that your title has to do this. I don't know how to interpret it. Like, oh, that's an interesting idea, but I also don't, from a reader perspective, I also don't know what to do with it. So I mean, it can certainly pull from just intrigue. It can certainly work that way. But I also don't entirely know what to make of it. I mean, that poem, it sounds like, oh, this is going to be like some surreal, magical real kind of thing. Okay. So in that sense, it does kind of ground me for what we're going to read. Maybe it's going to enter the fantastic.
But then I think if it's like if it's me entering into the and okay, maybe I shouldn't read forward into the rest of the poem. I
kind of want to step in.
Okay. All right. So to me, I'm like thinking of like, I'm sure the earth would take this moment to write down what she really thinks. I'm like, if the earth could, I'm buying into the premise of the earth writing things down, but like, why would that be the way that the earth is communicating what it really thinks? Like, and I'm not saying that like that's like a nitpicky thing. It's like, I think that would be an interesting thing to build on, something just saying like, okay, because we go to this point where we're like, there's this concept of the earth being personified in a way that would mean that the earth is writing things down. But then I'm also I'm entering in with the premise of paper grew on trees. It's almost like going into like Willy Wonka and being like, this is like kind of, and not necessarily like the whimsicalness of Willy Wonka, but the outside of kind of the whimsy, right? So it's like this world that is not, it's like the world that we're living in kind, but not in nature. Like there's all these like kind of whimsical things that are happening in the Willy Wonka like factory, right? But then I'm not in the factory anymore. Like the first couple lines is like, I'm entering this world where the earth is personified and the earth is writing things down. And I'm like, but the mechanism of the earth writing it down, the only thing that matters the only reason that matters is because you're going to tell us, oh, humanity is being really bad to the earth. But I'm like, I want to hear more about like what I want the earth or the thing that I'm looking to continue is the concept of the earth being personified and not just, hey, environmentally humans kind of suck, if that makes sense.
I think there are some more opportunities that you can take advantage of with this premise.
Yeah.
Because what's really happening here? The speaker is projecting their own frustrations with the situation on Earth and applying that onto the character of the Earth that they make.
Right.
You know, so this is really the speaker talking, but the Earth becomes a vehicle. And I don't know if you're familiar with Natalie Diaz's work, but that's something she does a lot. She takes these like concepts where you have a very real thing, and then, you know, she doesn't just turn it into a metaphor or something like that. So in this case, you know, of an Earth that's writing itself, she dives all in. She goes like, she cranks it up to like 11. So like everything is suddenly going to enter this world. You know, everything's going to be, I'm no longer even going to be in this poem. The Earth is, this Earth writing things down and doing things becomes everything. Because otherwise what happens is there's the risk. I'm not saying that's happening here, but there's a sort of risk that we end up kind of just being on like a soapbox and being like, hey, and another thing, and just kind of doing that. So it's kind of
so there's a tactic in debate where people, it's essentially like, it's both an appeal to authority, but it's also you're superimposing somebody else's thought pattern and beliefs so that you're appealing to that authority. And I'm like, so I don't know, if somebody being like, oh, if Martin Luther King were here, he would say, and then you say things that aren't exactly anything that person said, right? But I mean, which is, again, this is not necessarily directly this, right? But it's the thing that you're doing where you're like, hey, this is what this person would say or do, and then you put all of the thoughts that you're already thinking into, which again, I actually think there's an interesting mechanic there, but I think it's kind of really far out from the thing that's happening here.
Yeah, that's in the future. If you make this a series, something like that, you know, a persona piece where instead of just having the separation between the speaker and the Earth, just having the perspective of the Earth.
Yeah.
But I want to focus on the piece here.
Okay.
If paper, gone trees, and the Earth was made of ink, I'm sure the Earth would take this moment to write down what she really thinks. Okay, I want to talk about some structural things with the consideration time. I'm going to try to stop us in about 10 minutes so we can get on the Bellows poem. I'm keeping an eye on the time. Rhyme scheme. What does having a rhyme scheme do for this piece? Is it a consistent rhyme scheme first? So trees, ink, moment, thanks, imagine, say, coded, blame. Okay, so it's like, looks like we're doing like A, B, C, B rhyme scheme. So trees, ink, we're basically every other line is rhyming. Okay. Say, coded, blame, fruity scars, trembling apart. That's kind of interesting. Ink, thinks, say, blame, scars, part. Oh, okay. How many lines we had total? 12. 24. Okay, balance. Mother, everything, children, same. Everything, same. Like off rhyme, maybe? Okay. Deep, heap, shoulders, holder. Okay. Cool. So how's a rhyme scheme help? Or just what are some things that having a rhyme scheme does for this piece?
It feels real almost sing-songy.
Okay. So what's the effect of that? And I would agree. It does give a kind of a sing-songy pattern.
I think it's the thing that happens, I think, with a lot of environmental messages that are targeting that maybe kind of target the youth or target
I
was
like very
preteens. It's
it makes it feel lighter. It adds a lightness, which can be very effective as a device because now you're getting into like irony. You're talking about this super heavy stuff. We've tortured her, but I'm rhyming as I tell you it.
Yeah, but it's also, if you could scroll down just a
Yeah.
tad bit.
Mhm.
So, I mean, one of the things that I think, like consistency in your message throughout the poem, if I'm thinking about like, you know, presenting this consistency to the message, and I think about it when it kind of crash lands right here. So like a tiger who makes their way to live in jungles which are too deep. It's like jungles being too deep is kind of an antithesis of
I was thinking that
the
as well.
messages in the poem, which are how we're destroying the earth, right? Because it's like that.
It doesn't feel compatible to have such a deep jungle in a world that has been.
And you yourself, like, I think it's okay. It's interesting because you're personifying the earth in a way that is essentially you're superimposing what the earth might say, and you're saying this is what the earth might say or write about, and then you are using things that are of the earth in metaphor, where as an analogy in the poem, but the analogy in the poem brings the image of the earth, or at least a component of the earth enacting in a very healthy way, which is jungles being too deep, which is just, again, because the mechanics that you're already dealing with, like you've already thought through the entire analogy as a mechanic, right? And so you might even disregard the image altogether because the point that you're making is, hey, it's like this tiger that went too deep into the jungle, maybe. You know what I mean? Like that's the you're trying to invoke maybe getting lost or something like that, but you've already disregarded the image because you've already distilled the thought behind the image. But to a new reader, I'm thinking, oh man, like in the space where I'm trying to imagine the earth in this really sick, dilapidated scenario, I'm bombarded with an image of a tiger and inside of healthy habitation, right?
Unless we're misinterpreting deep. So the way we're interpreting deep right now is they're assuming that again is implying a healthy, thick, large
jungles which are too deep.
Right. And that's how we're interpreting that. There maybe when that was written, another interpretation was there. I don't know, but I interpret that again as almost a sign of health.
Yeah.
Again, 6-minute warning. One question I have for the speaker here. You have a speaker that's very concerned about everything here.
I hope that worked. Yeah, question. It was well. No, you said one question, so it's like follow on, Jeff.
So you have a speaker that's very invested in what's happening, and the tone and the emotion is very clear here. So definitely credit for that. For just in terms of that consistency, there's this kind of pleading aspect. There's this desire. What makes the speaker very invested in these things?
That's good.
Because that's what's going to. Let's approach this from environmental poetry. Eco poetry is a thing. It's a whole genre. People are writing eco poems. Yeah. There's books on eco poems. So,
so shout out to Eco Theo.
Okay. So, my question is, there's hundreds of thousands of eco poems out there. How do I come back? If I read all of them, how do I come back to this one? And I think one of the things that's making that more difficult for me is that what's the thing here that is separating this from the others? And I think getting more into the speaker's investment into these aspects is going to be really key. And you have lots of moments where we could even just take them a step further, because you're really setting yourself up well. We've tortured her profusely. What does that look like? Leaving only bruises and scars. What do those look like? If I'm bruising the earth, how is that different than if I bruise the thighs?
It's the same thing.
It's the same. Imagine it's not.
If you hurt me, you hurt your planet. You know this, right?
It's like these are the opportunities where, like, for instance, maybe even taking them from like your local community. Like, I don't know what inspired this poem. Like, it was just walking down the street and we see litter on the grass, and we're just like, I know this is the last straw. I had to write a poem. I think she continues to provide everything, because the more specific details you're able to give me, the more information I'm going to learn about the speaker.
Yeah.
Because if instead of say like a self-promoter, she continues to provide, some specific things. She continues to provide, rain the moment that our aquifer is about to dry up. Well, then that's a very different, because now I'm getting some geography. Because I'm like, oh, you're located in a place that relies on groundwater, versus another. Like any of those little moments are really opportunities to start to individualize this poem.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that maybe it might be a missed opportunity is, think about this. If you take, can you scroll up a little bit? Stop for right down what she really thinks. Okay, if you take out the first 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of the poem, if you take out the first 4 lines of the poem, or actually, does the first 4 lines of the poem, are those needed to understand the rest of the things that are happening in the poem? And here's kind of when writing, and again, I'm kind of
1 minute.
Okay, so if you're like writing like a movie, one of the things that, especially if you're writing like Inception, right? Inception is like a really great movie, but in Inception, there's things that are happening in that movie that can only happen in that movie because you build this premise, and now it's such a unique premise that the regular things that you would do in another movie have to be changed and altered to fit inside of this premise. And so and I'm not going to get too much into Inception, but which is just to say, in this poem, it's like you set up this premise of the earth being composed of trees that grow paper and the oceans, which are ink. And maybe those are like figurative things. And I would imagine they're figurative because it doesn't seem like you were treating those first 4 things as a premise. Like you were treating them as like this, like kind of a figurative, maybe like notation, right? You're treating them like, hey, this is I wonder what Mother Earth would think if, she could write all this stuff down. And then you were saying that so that you could write all the things down that you would say to people, right? Which is just to say, again, and that to say, that's like, I think you should treat the first 4 lines as completely and utterly integral to how the rest of the poem interacts with the reader. And because I don't think they're treated like that. I think they're treated kind of flippantly, like, man, I wonder what would happen if this is this. And then you continue the rest of the poem, which is just kind of, you essentially, there's a lot of maybe like some environmental features in your poem that you're like, man, I'm really worried about the planet because this is what people do.
That is a very good point, because if I just take off those first 4 lines and this is what I get, in some ways, this is a more cohesive thing than if I add those 4 lines back in. And then you look at this, and I just zoomed out, but I couldn't even do that. So there is something to that. I think those first 4 lines are very intriguing. I don't necessarily want to lose them, but I also think we have to earn them a little bit more. If we're going to start off with this premise, that's a big premise. How can we incorporate those sorts of concepts more? Yeah. You brought us to the opening. Bella is so kind. She says, take our time, and we appreciate that. So I'm going to finish up with the close. Okay. We're kind of finishing with a bow. I don't know if you've heard of a bow before. A bow is when you have this hard, this difficult poem, but then you want to end it in a really nice, kind of positive way, like, hey guys,
it's like a 5-paragraph essay. Like when you write, you write the first paragraph is you write essentially your hypothesis, and then you might write like 3 things that you're addressing in your thing. The second thing is the first 2, 3, and then the last thing is just your summation of of everything that you did, which I think Jeff was kind of getting to there.
And again, it's very similar to actually the last poem. There's stylistic things that are different. The we hasn't appeared in this whole stanza, so then we get back to the we. The tone shifted. Now we're talking about help. We haven't talked about help this entire poem.
Yeah,
there's been no help. But then, hey guys, by the way, help. And then we also get the kind of the big final consequence. She's going to give up entirely. And there's no one left. So, I mean, it sounds like she already doesn't have anyone here to hold her.
I'm certainly not having her. What has she done for me lately?
So I don't even know if I necessarily agree.
All her oceans are ink.
With the last line here. We don't have to end neat and tidy.
Yeah.
And optimistic. I would kind of give very similar. I'd be curious in the same way I was curious for kind of put those last 4 lines on pause and instead left on just trash heap and then just sat down for another 20 minutes just to see where the poem went. I mean, one, it might start to actually reveal the real reason why we wrote this piece. And also reveal more about the speaker as well. Because right now this is it feels like, again, hey, 12 lines. Oh, I'm near the end of my stanza. Well, I guess I have to end the poem. Oh, we're rhyming. I guess I have to find the right rhyme. It kind of has, again, that sort of forced close again. So I'm not entirely. This might not be a 2-stanza poem. This might be a page-length poem if you let it. If you don't cut off the head too soon. One last thing about form, then, Bella. Okay, so you have a poem that's very traumatic. You have a poem that there's a lot of, kind of just horrible things happening to her. But the poem is, it's so regulated. It's so controlled. For a poem lacking.
And I almost wonder what this.
There's every we go.
Oh, we're back.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about the technical issue. What were you saying, Matthias?
Yeah, no, I was just saying that I wonder if this is how the poem gets formatted, or if it's because it's like in like a kind of a text kind of thread almost. It looks like, or a message thread.
I would definitely experiment with form, because you have a poem that's very destructive. You have a poem that's about breaking things down. And so I kind of wonder if the structure you're using that's so regimented, with the rhyme scheme, with the 12-12, very balanced, equal line lengths, relatively, if we give this poem the eye test, it looks very regular. I'm wondering if that's actually kind of going against what you have going on. And maybe if that's intentional, we can argue that, but I don't buy that it's intentional. Maybe it is. Because you could certainly make arguments for it, but I think right now this is one where, maybe starting off regulated, but then second stanza breaking up some lines, having some weird line breaks, lots of pauses, empty space, negative space, single line stanzas, things like that. I think you have some opportunities to really play with structure in interesting ways here.
Yeah.
I'm going to end that there. Any final things?
No, I did just say I kind of agree with the kind of, it looks like we're trying to tighten up all the things in the poem, essentially kind of give it the Berenstain Bears moral, but I don't think you always need that. But I also think that it feels like when we disregarded the initial premise to get into what it feels like, and I hope you're not taking this the wrong way,
thank you.
Somewhat like the preachy kind of midsection of the poem, it feels like that was the point the entire time, right? It feels like the point was to get to, hey guys, we need to do this for the earth, which is like to be clear, outside of this, let's do good by the earth, guys. But it's just to say, when it comes to like the world of the poem, it feels like, okay, this is what we were trying to do the entire time. We were trying to do the only you could prevent forest fires part of the of the speech.
Yeah.
Which is like not true, because like more people than just me can prevent forest fires. I don't know why he put that on me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, come on. It's a lot of pressure for an 11-year-old.
Also making a note about the bows. Yeah, definitely watch out for bows. That's a super, and it's definitely not just you. This is a super common thing you see among writers.
Right, because you want it to happen, right? It's not like abnormal. Like, you kind of want, if you're writing something, like you want to figure out like, how do I end this? Because then it's like, if you don't have an end, because it feels like you almost don't have an ending. Maybe is the best thing for the poem, but it's like the worst thing for your sleepless nights.
Thank you so much to Hope for sending the poem. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Hope.
Oh, we got a litany going on.
We got to clap it up for Hope.
Give it up for Hope.
That's just the golf clap, but we need a real sound of applause clap.
A hardcore one.
Yeah.
I mean, we could.
Oh my God! Thank you so much, Hope. Jesus.
Okay.
Amazing.
All right, we have Bella, who is adamant we know that this is by Bella. We got the names all over.
We got the names all over
in red. Okay. Cool. Bella, thank you for your patience, first of all.
Yeah.
Let's see where we are after this. I don't think we'll be able to get to all the poems, unfortunately. I might come on another stream later this week to kind of cover poems we didn't get to. I don't see the title, so just starts first line. Massage, did you wanna?
Let's do it. No, I see some exclamation points. I'm gonna try to.
Oh, you want to get into it?
Yes. I am love. I am alive. I am the fire in your eyes. I am hope when you're disgraced. I am the trust that you misplaced. That you misplaced. I am the drink you can't refuse. I am the stuff you take right before you lose. Am I yours, or am I just a ruse?
Okay.
Wait, a ruse? Yeah. Am I yours, or am I just a ruse? Am I yours, or am I just a ruse?
Okay.
I'm gonna stop saying the last line. I feel like if I read this as like Ben Affleck and Geely, am I yours, or am I just a ruse?
I don't know if this was for
that was a deep cut. That was a deep cut.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Let's talk form really quick. So we have a litany. I am. Helping the poem, hurting the poem, neutral in the poem. What are your thoughts on the effectiveness of the litany?
Maybe I'm somewhat unclear as what the poem is attempting to get across. So maybe I'm unclear as far as whether or not it was. It's giving Maya Angelou.
Giving Maya Angelou vibes.
That's not.
It's okay. We're not spelling. It's okay.
Wait a minute, Tim. We might need to look up Maya Angelou's name.
You got the last side.
I got the last. Okay.
Come on. We get.
I appreciate
it. Look at this picture. Come on.
Yeah, you're right. That's actually how I remember spelling her name, Tim. That's actually no, Tim. You were right. She was wrong. Clearly, she. Clearly, she wasn't.
Okay. Going back to the litany. Stop avoiding my question. So you mentioned that you weren't entirely sure what the poem is about, you said?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to feel by the end of the poem. So it's hard to. It's. I think if there was like one other clue somewhere, or maybe if we discover some clue throughout reading, like throughout kind of our exploring of the poem, maybe that might be a little bit clearer. But from right now,
here's a huge clue. I mean,
what the drink you can't refuse? Is that?
And this isn't
Okay.
It's all about the last stanza. I mean, the last stanza is the heart to everything here. You have a speaker who is questioning their value in a relationship.
Hey, wait a minute. Okay, I see. I kind of see the transition from the exclamation points to the ellipses after the I am, and then I am. And is that what you were getting at just now, or no?
I think we can get into how much is the ending earned based on what's coming before it. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not earned, but something I think is.
Tim says revoke his card.
But that seems to be because I don't necessarily get a whole lot of tension before that last stanza. There's a lot of very positive. It kind of it starts off, or maybe passionate is the right. Like, I am love, I'm alive, I'm the fire in your eyes. Okay, so we start off kind of a almost manic situation with the speaker.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just the speaker's relationship with alcohol, because it's like you can imagine all those spectrums existing within their relationships. Like, I am love, I'm like with people, maybe they're drinking a lot, what I'm saying, they have those really highs of those emotions, and then I am hope when you're disgraced. And so, like, maybe like maybe again, it's like if you look at it in a optimistic view, like that could be a very optimistic kind of view, or it could be kind of like, man, that's kind of dark, that like the one hope that you have when you're disgraced is like maybe the bottle, and then I am the drink you can't refuse. So like that line to me, it's like it's like can't refuse. It's like you should have the option of refusing the drink, you know what I'm saying? And like, I am the stuff you take right before you, so I'm the stuff you take right before you lose. Like, okay, like maybe like you drink and then you lose after, you know what I'm saying, you lose whatever it is you lose. Am I yours, or am I just a ruse? And I mean, that can be kind of, I don't, that.
Do you take the I as being specific alcohol?
Yeah.
The only thing is, the last stanza to me doesn't read the same way for that. I can see it for the previous ones, but the last stanza, I'm having a harder time interpreting it that way as.
Well, I'm having a harder time in interpreting a concrete value to the last line, unless it's like given to me, unless you say, I think it's a line that allows you to put pretty much anything therein and make it, because I don't know if even if it's like the hope, or if it's like a relationship, it's still like, what do you mean the person's, I can imagine maybe a person being a ruse, but it's like, you'd have to give that to me.
So the big thing here, there's a lot of differences between that last stanza and everything before it. The first couple stanzas, lots of confidence. I am this, I am this, I am this, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. And then the last stanza, am I this? Am I yours? So suddenly,
you think it's another like kind of almost bow, but kind of inverted, where now you're asking the reader questions so that he can be like, oh, is this the end? Like, find out next time on Alcohol Chronicles.
Like, and again, this is just after reading the poem for 5 minutes, but everything else that came before it, I would say it doesn't matter, but like the last stanza is now introducing this whole new dynamic. Like, like, is this actually what we're trying to write? We have a speaker who is just trying to figure out what is their place with this other character. I mean, maybe it's maybe it's not two people. Maybe it's thinking of something else. But the way I interpret those is two people. This feels like something like, hey, are we actually together, or you just like playing around? You know, but maybe not. I mean, it could be possessions. I don't know. I mean, it could be
because it's like maybe if it's playing around, but like I am the stuff you take right before you lose. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? Or what is that derivative of? I am the stuff you take right before you lose. I am the stuff you take right before you. I am the stuff you take. I am the one who knocks.
Quick note also to Bella, if we are like just completely off base, something that again may help in the future is I've said multiple times, but titles again are just for framing. Just give your readers such an opportunity to kind of guidance. It lets us know what is the direction you want me to go. Otherwise, you know, we can steer right, we can steer left. We're just not sure if we're going the way that you intend us to.
I think if and especially if you kind of go the almost like ambiguous route, it's like if you go that route, which you can, it's like without the title, I have. If without the title and you do the ambiguous thing the entire time, you know, you're gonna kind of be grasping for something at the end to kind of tether you down or try to figure out what you just kind of experienced, maybe.
Yeah, and you could be okay with that. You know, that's fine. Maybe that's the entire intention of the piece. But if like you're hearing people talk about your poem, you're like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. That is one technique to avoid that sort of situation. Bella making a note. I can offer clarity, but you're both right about the subject.
Wait, like
that's also not helpful.
Wait, hold on. Like when you say we're both right, you mean like it's both like literal like alcohol, or it's
people,
or it's like both.
Mm-hmm. And they say I'm notorious for writing things up to interpretation.
That's okay. So here, okay,
you want it?
Here's what I would say about that. And again, this is everybody's own individual style or what have you. But I think that how would I put this? It's almost like if you were drawing a picture of somebody and you were like, okay, so I'm actually not drawing a picture. If you had to give the description of to somebody, like to like one of those character artists or sketch art, a police sketch artist or something like that, it's like if you were like, yeah, the person had a nose, eyes, a mouth, and I'll let you kind of just guess the rest. It's like it's like you haven't developed. I think a lot of times it's like people kind of see that as a way of kind of for you to have your own adventure almost. But I think that and the thing is, it's like I want to be clear. Me and Jeff, I think this was months ago, like on one of our podcasts from back when we were at the Third Way a while ago. But there was this poet that actually Jeff was telling me about them. But that kind of made just really kind of general, broad spectrum kind of poems. There wasn't really any weight or heft to them. It was just kind of this really general, almost like Hallmark card, but not even Hallmark card, because Hallmark cards kind of require some level of specificity in order to be on a card, right? So it's like I think I see the appeal in saying, hey, I'm just going to kind of be somewhat ambiguous about what I'm talking about. But I think the problem with that is that it kind of makes the poem not its own poem as much as it's like, you know, kind of an empty vessel for you to put your poetry in. And I would be much more interested in a poem that can't be both, in a poem that it requires you to know that, hey, I am talking about a relationship, because now you have to draw in the lines a little bit more. Now you have to add the resolution to the picture that maybe I would say like adds like the character to the poem, that gives the poem some character. Whereas I think the way it is now, in order for it to be both, you have to make sure it's not either. And then I don't even know if it's just both. It's like everything, right? But in my mind, I had in mind an intoxicating addiction, speaking as a person to the user. Addiction could be anything very broad here. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I think that comes
again, yeah,
across.
exactly, yeah,
That comes across.
yeah. No, I would. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We're staying very. It's like we're not allowing ourselves to. I don't want to say do the painful work, but to commit. Like we're like, I want to talk about this subject, and I'm going to stay at this. I'm going to maintain a level of distance, so that way I'm not personally going to get invested. And if we're not going to commit to things, then I think it's going to be hard for your reader to commit to. So like, I don't. Why is the speaker really interested in this dynamic? What's at stake with this situation? So I am love, I'm alive, I'm the fire in your eyes. Okay, I'm hope when you're disgraced. Okay, so so the speaker, the I is here for this other person, the you, the your. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I am the trust that you misplaced. But again, we don't really, the speaker's not really, not real agency. You know, we have just these I am statements. The verb to be is an interesting verb because it's not real any action. It's just like a big equal sign. I am the stuff you take right before you lose. These are all, so we have a very passive speaker. Everything happens to the speaker. It's misplaced. This trust you're misplaced.
Yeah.
The drink you can't refuse. So again, very. It's not that I don't do the refusing. You refuse, or you can't refuse me. I'm the stuff you take. I'm taken. And so the last line, am I yours? So now there's a lot of weight with this. Am I yours or am I just a ruse? This is the close. So this is implying that this question carries a lot of significance for the speaker, right? This question is supposed to have weight to it. Am I yours or am I just a ruse? The answer to this is going to have an impact on how I feel as a speaker, right?
But also, I don't know. In what way was you being a ruse fleshed out at all throughout the poem? So, like, maybe am I yours being, like this thing that you can possess? Like, how is that a positive or negative? Even, right? So it's like I don't even know what the context of it being a ruse is, but let alone it being like, am I yours? Like, is that good that it's like, am I yours? Or am I saying am I yours isn't like this bad, like this is like this burden you carrying?
So that's why the stakes to me aren't very clear, because it's implied that there are stakes with this question.
Why did you say that like Bane? It's implied. It's implied the stakes.
I was bothered by
the city is mine. The League of Shadows.
But I don't. It's implied that this question has stakes to it. It's implied that whatever the answer is to this question is going to affect how the speaker feels. But I don't know enough about why the speaker is going to let that decision have so much of an impact on them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think kind of what you started out with, and really where you ended really the entire way through, but it's like if the subject is like in something that's addictive, so like maybe it's not just like, because it's also like it would be confusing to me for it to be something that maybe is alcohol when you're using alcohol as a little metaphor already, or the drink that you can't refuse as a little metaphor, as like you're using that therein as well. So I think you're kind of doing this like almost triangular thing. So you are you're saying, hey, this is the metaphor is, or the subject is both I mean, maybe somebody's in a relationship that's like this, maybe tumultuous up and down relationship, or it's this like alcohol addictive thing that it is, or it's both. And I think that it's like I don't have like a logic tree to go down in order to really wrap my head around the poem. And I think what you're saying, it makes sense, because I think it's the way a lot of people kind of enter into the poem itself. They're like, hey, the thing that they're thinking, and it makes sense. It's oh man, what's a good analogy? Here's a perfect analogy. It's like, okay, if you wanted a really good steak, you wouldn't go to an all-you-can-eat buffet in order to get it. But the reason isn't because, okay, like no all-you-can-eat, but well, I guess there is some. Okay, listen, your typical all-you-can-eat buffet, because there's some. This is not promoted by all-you-can-eat buffets, but it's just to say, But if you are, if you're looking to promote us, we'll do poems at your all-you-can-eat buffet. But it's just to say that, like, if you don't choose a lane to go down, to specialize in, to say like this is the vision for this space, then essentially what you're doing is you're just highlighting all the things that it could be. And the reason that that's not always, because I see the appeal, right? The appeal is you have all the things, right? It's like that's the appeal. The appeal is you don't have to focus. Now this place can be a steak place to that person, a burrito place to that person, a pizza place to that person. Everybody can get whatever they want. But the problem is that while you can get what you want, you don't get the quality of the thing that you want, because it's like the chef is focused on all these other things. Whereas if you were like, well, hold on, let me focus in my vision. This is just a pizza place. Now, all the effort that I use in order to kind of make this vision kind of sparsed out to all these other things, I'm solidifying it with just this. So now if you go into Donato's, you're not going to walk out of Donato's like, man, was that a wings place or was that a salad? Yeah, okay, they got wings and salad, but that's a pizza place. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all the options. Everything is leading you there. Typically, it's like you get a pizza and wings. You don't get wings and then maybe think about, oh man, do I want a pizza? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'm not even hungry right now, which is crazy. All these food analogies. But it's just to say that, yeah, I think the way that the poem is constructed and the way that you even wrap your head around the poem here now, which again, it makes sense when you're reading it, is there's a want for whoever comes to this poem to get whatever they need from the poem.
I think,
but I don't think that's the thing that I don't think that mission is accomplished by making the poem ambiguous. I think if you make the poem specific, so like let's say you just choose one. Let's say you make it a relationship. If you make it relationship, somebody can read your poem about a relationship, and then they can put that they can layer their relationship to alcohol on top of that, but you're trying to do the work for them by leaving it empty.
I think there might be something that narrows it down.
Okay.
And this isn't going to be perfect, but just hear me out. So I'm just you don't even necessarily to look at it, just kind of listen. Am I just a ruse, or am I yours? Right before you lose, I'm the stuff you take. I am. You can't refuse. I'm the drink. I am that you misplaced. I'm the trust. When you're disgraced, I'm the hope. In your eyes, I'm the fire. I'm alive. I am love.
Did you just like read the poem back? That's good.
That's
Hey man, that was kind of really
but
all of Jeff's edits, like you just uncovered all of Jeff's edits are just him reading your poems backwards.
but I think one of the things that does is instead of the ambiguity, it actually narrows it down. Because suddenly it's no longer the question like, hey, am I just a ruse? No, I'm not a ruse. No. Or am I yours? And now it's the convincing. I'm showing you, I'm proving to you that I'm yours. Because right before you do this, I do this. Right before you do this, I do this. Right before you do this, I do this. And then you end with that the punch. I am the fire. I am alive. I am love.
And I don't know, Bella, do you perform? Do you perform your poems places? Do you like go to like open mics or I don't know, whatever places that you might go? Do you perform the poems? Maybe I don't want to wait. But yeah, like just answer whatever. But I was just saying, I think even the way that Jeff just like read it just now, I think if I'm somebody listening to the poem, you don't perform the poems, Bella? Bella, where are you from?
Very adamant she does not perform.
wait, Bella, where are you from? Like, what are you based out? Where are you based out of?
Yeah, I think that order though does remove a lot of the ambiguity.
Yeah,
there's a lot more direction.
So, and maybe it does the thing that, yeah, because I mean, just what we were talking about, I think 2 poems ago, where you increase your resolution. I just moved to Ohio. Hey. Yeah, Bella, you should. I don't know where in Ohio. If you're in Columbus, I mean, everywhere, pretty much most cities that I know that I've been to fairly often in Ohio, have like open mics. Like I don't know, Akron I know has a couple open mics. Columbus has a few. There's one about to start on the 27th. As well. There's some in Dayton, but what I'm saying is that like I don't know if when you say I do not perform, I don't know if that is an invocation like I don't perform, like I'm not the person that performs, or like I don't perform as in like I just don't do it.
Doesn't
I don't
have
know.
to be like spoken word. Like it can just be like
you don't got to speak your words. Okay, you can just do the poem. You don't got to speak the words. But yeah, I think it lends itself much clearer to the performance nature of the poem, or the agility the poem has in performance. Because I was actually thinking that, but I didn't want to like necessarily restructure. But I was thinking, but I wasn't thinking going backwards as much as I was just thinking the restructuring of the last line. It says, or like, am I just a ruse or am I yours? I think the am I yours is a much stronger ending to a line. Or am I yours? Like that question. If the stanza is going to be a question, I think that would be a better question. Am I just a ruse or am I yours? Question.
All right. Bella, if you have any final thoughts for us about anything here, let me know. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, Bella.
How are you feeling? You good for one more, or you think that's...
I'm good for one more. Let's do it.
Okay. My apologies for everyone who submitted if we did not get to your work, but we're trying to be as thorough as possible with what we have received. Okay. All right. This one's from Katie Talks. Bell says, thank you guys. That was great. Thank you for sharing your words with us. We hope that was helpful. As always, these are just quick reactions, guys. We're we're crazy. Hopefully they can give you some insight.
This started out as a sandwich podcast, and we're just like, people keep asking us about poems, and so we're just like, let's splinter off from sandwiches.
And I said the Hoagie Fest because of Wawa, and then Matthias says, "What's Wawa?"
This will very soon become a sandwich podcast again.
As long as I can read, I can breathe by Katie Talks. My lungs, parchment thin, intricately folded pages of an ancient manuscript. Each intake a breath, a verse being read. Each exhale, a dialogue. Bronchioles, branching lines of text, airways, weaving into the crevices, finding home in the tiny alveolar sacs at the end of each sentence. Oxygen and carbon dioxide, each taking turns, maintaining the delicate balance of this bodily narrative. Katie Talks, as read by Jeff.
Thanks, Katie Talks.
Yeah.
Is Katie Talks in here with us right now?
I believe they sent me a message that they will not be able to see us live. So, Katie, if you're seeing us in the future, hello from the past.
If you're seeing us in the future, like, what are the lottery numbers for tomorrow? Oh, that's not how this works.
That would not benefit us.
Well, that's unless they're like unless Katie had a time machine and then Katie is reading it in the future.
Only possibility.
Katie, if you have a time machine, come into Jeff's house right now and tell us the lottery tickets.
They love Katie Talks. Yes.
Yeah.
These are all Threads folks, by the way. Give it up for Threads.
Shout out to
Threads.
Threads.
Showing up.
Thread it up.
I'm liking it. I don't know if you've hanged.
I'm enjoying it more.
My feed's giving me what I want. Like, I've curated. I muted a lot of people, but we're at a good spot now. Like,
we're doing good
you're
stuff.
the first person I muted. I did not mute you.
I deserved it.
I did not mute you. Okay. Interesting. Just looking structurally. I just want to give it the eye test. Eye test. We're backing up. That's as far back as I can go. Usually I like to go back farther. 664. Interesting. I don't know what to make of that yet, but rhymes, no rhymes, free verse,
no rhymes,
then script, breathe, dialogue, breathe, read. All white branching crevices in the sentence. Okay. I don't know. Maybe off rhymes. I don't know if they're intentional or not. You guys are like, Jeff, I can't even read that. Here, let me zoom in. Sorry. Rhyming or not rhyming? Turns, narrative, dioxide, balance. I'm guessing free verse.
Yeah, it's not rhyming.
Like a kind of rhyming-esque elements, but I think over all free verse. Things jumping at you?
Parchment. I think it's interesting that the first line gives me the practical and the image. Mm-hmm. Like, my lungs, parchment thin, intricately folded pages of ancient manuscript. Each intake of a breath, a verse being read. Each exhale, a dialogue. Wait, hold on. Okay, so for some reason, the way that I'm reading it is perhaps like maybe there is an issue with the speaker's actual breathing, but the way that they breathe is like through reading.
So you're taking it,
but still showing the delicacy of their physical and being like, well, yeah, I don't know. That's just my first impression. If you were to read that poem to me, and then
I didn't take it that way. I take it just as kind of just a metaphor of just breath and connecting with reading. That's not to say I disagree, but I personally didn't go there.
Yeah, well, I think my lungs parchment thin, like,
but lungs might be. I thought that was more just appealing to biology, unless our lungs not parchment thin.
Do you
like?
Have you?
I
Wait,
don't know,
hold
I
on,
don't know how the
what?
tissue of lung. Like I don't.
But do you think the thing that's being referenced is the tissue of lungs, or figuratively, because your lungs
Mhm.
compress and expand with your breath. So
Sure, but
like
they're basically like balloons, which have to be relatively thin to like contain the air.
they're not, but like your lungs aren't like, they're not like the
I mean, obviously not,
viscosity of
but
balloons.
like I don't know about. Do we have a doctor?
Jeff, this feels like you need to have like watch like the Magic School Bus. It's just like, I just don't know what's going on inside of there. Like no, like
I don't.
in the human, like the okay, if somebody were like, my lungs parchment thin, like describing lungs as thin, like thin lungs, to me seem like the ability for your lungs to expand and like push out like air.
Mhm.
It feels antithetical to them being thin. Like you would not want your lungs to be thin.
I don't want
But
them to be too dense either, though.
okay, maybe not too dense, but if somebody said
All right,
like
I'm gonna move on. I guess Robbie's on different sides.
Miss Frizz
Which
taught
one?
me that.
I took it as just a connection, try to just lead into the metaphor, to extend the metaphor with the reading in the pages. And I didn't think of sickness or anything like that. I'm not saying, I mean, yeah, sure, maybe. But I personally didn't get there.
Okay.
Each intake of breath, a verse being read. So I breathe in, verse. I breathe out, dialogue. Which actually, I like that. Kind of plays on the fact that when you talk, you are exhaling. You are releasing breath when you talk. Did you know that?
You can't. I guess you can't.
Please don't breathe.
Yeah. I never thought about it, but I guess you're right.
so there's kind of that mirroring.
You can hold your breath and talk.
Anyways, so I feel like there's some mirroring going on there, which I liked. I'm with it. So first thing is I'm here. It's interesting too with the ancient manuscript. We're saying that a parchment is full of pages of an ancient manuscript. I guess that's kind of referring maybe to like biology and like evolution and stuff. Like it's our gradual transformation to our current state. I don't know. Bronchioles. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's not every day you get bronchioles in a poem. Branching. I like the bees. Branching lines of text, airways, weaving in the crevice to find home in tiny little sex in every sentence. I'm starting to get to the point where, lots of kind of cool language, and I appreciate the extension of the metaphor. I'm with it.
Maybe kind of getting lost in the metaphor a little bit.
I'm not getting lost in the metaphor, but I'm getting lost in knowing where you're taking me. What's the end goal here? What's the tension?
Okay, I got you.
I don't know what's at stake.
It feels like there's too much world building and not enough plot. Like I need to know what's happening, as opposed to like you trying to show me that all this stuff is happening.
Like,
I got you.
But like it's an intelligent poem. It's crafty, but it's also kind of missing the tone. Maybe we have a solution to this. Hope says, I think the speaker gets a sort of calmness in reading, gets immersed in what they need. Are there specific sections of the poem that lead you to that interpretation? I don't disagree, but I'm just curious which parts do that. But even like a poem on calmness still doesn't mean like it's devoid of tension. Like there's something. Not all poems have stakes. to be clear, but I think it all depends on kind of what your goal is for this poem. And I should ask that. That would be very helpful feedback, is knowing what your guys' goals are when you're sending in these poems. I need to have a greater idea about where am I being transported to? How's the speaker, or where's the change happening? Where's the turn? Where's the conflict?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. Okay, so I'm not necessarily seeing as a
maybe a little bit there.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Maybe the last stanza starts to introduce something there, but I'm sorry for interrupting.
Although I think this poem is probably a really good example of kind of what we were talking about with the other ones, as far as like kind of wrapping up at the end. But I don't know that I would say that there is necessarily a tension that's happening with the poem. And I think in maybe initially when I read my lungs and parchment thin together, I'm thinking maybe there is a tension there, but it's like my lungs parchment thin, and maybe the literal, and then but the figurative being like my lungs parchment thin, but then the rest of this kind of taking you through the body in and of itself, or like how like the mechanics of your breathing.
So I know I just made it smaller, but there's some little things I just want to highlight. So I'm just going to kind of highlight potential areas of tension.
Okay.
Do you see more of that kind of potential sickness elsewhere? You can hold that thought. So the other places where I'm seeing some potential for tension that I do think probably could be elevated further. Action each second turns, maintain the delicate balance. So now there's this sense of fragility, which I'm curious about.
Which again, delicate balance, parchment thin.
So potentially, I think I need more, but I'm starting to see some breadcrumbs, and then the title. This is why titles are important, people. As long as I can read, I can breathe. What happens when I can't read? I can't breathe, right?
Yeah.
Just going by the logic of the title. So now I'm starting. There's elements, some very subtle,
but it's like
elements, but
the title is very direct in your face. Really, no ambiguity. I mean, it's maybe some ambiguity in that, you know, maybe you don't think that literally if I lost the ability to read, I would stop breathing, but you know the concrete reading and breathing, like these are concrete terms. And then the poem is not that.
So I think it's an opportunity. This kind of goes back to a poem we had earlier. I think it was Hope's poem, where you start off with a premise. How can we bring that premise in to like 1,000th degree? You know, this is a big concept. As long as I can read, I can breathe. Okay, cool. That's a really big concept. But how do we enter that even more? We have all these images related to breath and reading, but potentially we could elevate this to incorporate that sort of tension. A little moments where we're unable to read. What happens when the speaker can't read? That's kind of what, as long as I can read, I can breathe. That begs the question, what happens when you can't? You know what I mean? And I think especially, again, these little hints, the delicate balance, bodily narrative, and potentially even that line that Matthias noted, with the parchment thin. There are these elements where we could start to introduce these points of tension. The speaker is not always able to read, and they start to collapse, fall apart, disintegrate, whatever. And I just think that is something that could be elevated by the kind of the premise that we've established, that I think isn't being utilized to its full potential right now.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think there's some there's some connective tissue that isn't really thread all the way through the poem, but it makes the parts of the poem that they're happening fairly interesting, and like you want to kind of
Mhm.
expand upon it.
Mhm.
And the rest of the poem, it stays consistent in theme. You know what I mean? But yeah, I guess I would agree with what you're saying. Yeah, it stays consistent in theme, but it's like I don't know the reason that the theme is happening to me.
Mhm.
Right, and like
Mhm,
that's what the
mhm,
plot does. The plot gives you the reason that the theme is happening
Yeah,
to you.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta write that down. That's a good one.
It'll be forever on the street. Go back to I don't even necessarily think it would take much for that sort of tension to happen. It's like I don't even know if we necessarily need to add like a bunch of stanzas or things like that, but just kind of incorporate little things more. Other things to consider too are just emotionally. So I know Hope mentioned that she's feeling calmness. What emotion do you get from this as a reader? You end this poem. How do you feel?
All right. So okay, I'm gonna add like a note, and then well, actually, so I don't think I really know how to answer the question.
Okay.
Because I don't think that I think without a plot, or without what I would imagine is like the stakes that I'm playing at here, I think it's hard for me to feel a heads or tails about it,
Mm.
or like as far as like what the thing that I'm
So
feeling.
you're kind of uncertain how to feel.
Right, but it's because like I don't know what the stakes are.
Mhm.
I think if if it were me, there would be maybe an element introduced where, and I don't know if this is like is just you talking about yourself, or if this is maybe a writing exercise, or what have you.
Mhm.
I might even introduce like an idea of like, take this exact concept, but the subject is going blind. Now you add,
Mm.
and not necessarily like I'm not saying like to add a whole bunch of lines to it, but I'm like, think about that. Think about what stakes that would introduce to a person who's saying that as long as you can read, you can breathe. And that's only if we're saying like reading in the conventional, I'm reading with my eyes to the paper.
Yeah.
So now you introduce an aspect to the poem that also is kind of, it branches, it pulls in some anatomical feature, like things that you can add in, maybe like with retinas or whatever you wanted to be able to kind of access there. But then it also adds in some real stakes to the poem, because it's like you just said, as long as you can breathe. So like now we have the diminishing like
Yeah.
like of your breath in close relation to your sight, which is in close relation like to your
And this
yeah. So it's not even just like, because I think what the stakes that a lot of people would have when it comes to sight is just the ability to see. But you're again, you're narrowing it down even more. So kind of almost the same with the last poem, where it's like we want to narrow our focus. It's like this was a fairly narrow focus as far as the theme, but it's like there was really no stakes to happen. But if like you had the stakes of this subject, or and I guess you would be the subject, because it's like yeah, so like you would be the subject. So it's like you like going blind, or maybe your ability to see being diminished, and that hurting your ability to read, and that hurting your ability to breathe, and then you being able to show the diminishing of your breathing through the poem using these anatomical terms would be like,
I'm just a million
some plot,
anything like that. I mean, it could also be kind of opposite. It could be
your sight's getting better over time.
No, but actually, yeah. Like as long as I can read, I can breathe. It's 1,000 years later, I can still read. I can still. So it's like so like the fact of like as a speaker who like just almost immortal versus because they keep but this goes back
Brainiac,
to
the world
general,
destroyer.
the general idea of like there's I think we have a pretty solid base here. So like now the question is how can we elevate this again and just play with it and just instead of being at kind of just like a level like 7 like in terms of volume, how can we make the volume like level like 11 for just like how crazy can this poem go?
Okay, so this is my every 10 minutes movie analogy, but here's the thing. The reason why people are interested in, like, let's say like the Matrix is because the story of the Matrix starts where the main plot line is going to begin. So it's like if the Matrix was just about people, if it was just about Neo living in the Matrix his day to day for like what the Matrix the first Matrix is like, I don't know, like 5-6 days maybe, right? Something like that. Maybe it's less, but it's like because of the fact that you're focusing on the 5 or 6 days that something really climactic happens, right? And so it's like you're not just building the world. Like you could have done that with 3 or 4 years worth of time leading up to that, where he's like, oh, he's just living his life, and this is what the Matrix is, and this. But the fact that you're getting all that in-depth explanation and world building in the context of such a fulfilling and thrilling, really, like plot, like that's like your story is moving forward because you have a character in it that's making decisions that is pushing the world and it's changing things, and that other characters have to change things and other things in the scenario, and eventually the theme itself transitions and changes, right? So, and again, that's just to say conceptually, the thing that we're looking at right now is, man, we have the Matrix, but we had like, this is kind of like the Matrix if it was just like a regular day to day. But like now, if we have like a plot that we can put in here, and it's like, these are the things that are happening, this is the story that you're following, I think that would really give the reader something to grab onto. And that doesn't necessarily call for in like an expansion of the poem, although it might. I would say it would. Jeff might disagree. I don't know. Jeff typically errs on the side of it doesn't require more poem, it requires less. But maybe it requires more poem, but it just there should be something therein that has some kind of stakes that aren't just chewing the scenery. You know what I mean? You're actually, no, I'm using this to get somewhere.
All right. I think that's good stuff for Katie. Good stuff
Thanks, Katie,
for that. Thanks for sending us your poem. Hope you
Wait,
find
what's
that
Katie's
helpful.
you
can find Katie at
Katie Talks.
on
Thanks,
Threads.
Katie Talks on Threads.
Cool. All right, guys. I'm going to pause us here. For those who sent us poems, thank you so much. For those who were able to get feedback, we hope you found that helpful. If we were not able to get you feedback, I would like to later this week take a look at them in some way. So just keep an eye out on the channel. But yeah, so this is the Versus Live. We meet every single Tuesday at around this time, more or less. If you have specific questions related to poetry, topics on poetry you would like to see in the future, be sure to let us know. And follow us on Threads at the Versus Poetry.
Thread it up.
Yeah. All right. Any other things?
No.
Cool. All right. I am Jeff.
I'm Matthias.
Thank you guys so much. You guys have a good day, good night, good afternoon. Thanks everyone joining us. We'll see you next week.
See ya.